The massacre and narrow victory of the rebel army reverberated through the divine civilization of Alkebulan, shaking its foundations profoundly. From the embers of that devastating conflict emerged a changed Madinga, no longer just a warrior, but now an embodiment of death itself, riding a majestic steed whose very hoofbeats echoed with dread. The elder gods, ensconced in their ancient sanctuaries, finally grasped the magnitude of their mistake. They lamented, ignoring Orunmila's counsel, and knew their days of unchallenged rule were numbered. They wondered, with a creeping dread, how many would remain standing once Madinga's vengeful wrath was fully unleashed. Madinga's transformation after the battle was stark and undeniable. He grew colder, his once radiant warmth replaced by steely determination. He took control of the battered remnants of the rebel forces, backed resolutely by Midis and Tshakara, both of whom shared his burning resolve. His leadership quickly turned ironclad, disciplined, and meticulously calculated. Unlike the impulsive vengeance expected from a young warrior, Madinga was patient. He moved carefully, studying the elder gods individually, their strengths and weaknesses meticulously analyzed. He crafted distinct, ruthless strategies tailored specifically to each adversary. The elder gods could sense this calculated approach, and their unease grew into palpable fear. Following the solemn burial ceremony of the fallen warriors, tales of Madinga's emerging legend spread swiftly across Alkebulan. Inspired and hopeful, new rebels flocked to his side, drawn by whispers of a god who might finally shatter the oppressive yoke of the elder gods. But Madinga was initially reluctant to accept them. The weight of his grief was still heavy. The memories of lost comrades and Iru's dying words haunted him. He distanced himself emotionally, fearful of forging new bonds only to watch them violently severed again. Yet Midis, ever wise and patient, saw beyond Madinga's hardened exterior. He approached Madinga cautiously one quiet night, their conversation lasting hours beneath the silvery glow of Alkebulan's moon. With steadfast wisdom, Midis reasoned that new allies weren't just essential for victory, but crucial for survival. He gently persuaded Madinga that they needed fresh warriors, young and brave, and that their survival was linked inexorably to the rebellion's endurance. After lengthy contemplation and reflection on Midis's words, Madinga finally agreed, under one solemn condition. He would personally oversee their rigorous training, not merely to mold formidable soldiers, but to ensure they lived to see the world he was determined to build. Thus, a grueling and disciplined training regimen began, led by Madinga himself. The new rebels quickly learned that their leader was not merely powerful, but also remarkably wise, compassionate beneath his iron exterior, yet uncompromisingly firm. His teachings were as much about survival and unity as they were about warfare and combat. Under his stern yet inspirational guidance, the rebel forces swiftly evolved into a disciplined, loyal, and lethal army. These were no mere soldiers, they were survivors, united by a common dream and steeled by an unyielding determination to reshape the divine order of Alkebulan. In the 2 celestial years that passed, Madinga transformed the rebel forces from a collection of passionate outcasts into a formidable, disciplined, and unified army. Under his rigorous leadership and meticulous training methods, they blossomed into hardened warriors, each equipped not only to fight, but to survive the harshest of battles. Despite his initial reluctance to accept new recruits, Madinga poured all his pain, loss, and relentless determination into these soldiers, creating warriors whose loyalty to him and the rebellion was absolute and unwavering. They saw in him not only a leader, but also a living symbol of hope, defiance, and the possibility of true justice. Meanwhile, the elder gods were not idle. The aftermath of Madinga's ascension had sparked an unprecedented wave of panic among their ranks, forcing them into a frenzy of desperate preparations. Secretive councils convened constantly, each elder deity plotting survival strategies and defenses. Of all the elder gods, none trained harder or more desperately than Mbutumba. The memory of the boy he fathered, now a god more powerful than he had ever been, haunted him relentlessly. Every waking hour, Mbutumba was tormented by visions of Madinga's cold, accusing eyes, the inescapable shadow of vengeance looming ever closer. Ruhunga, the elder god of war technologies, responded in his own way, retreating deeper into isolation as he meticulously crafted devastating weapons and unimaginable devices of war. In the dim solitude of his secret forge, illuminated only by the cyan glow of divine tools, Ruhunga desperately hoped that his inventions would be sufficient to halt, or at least slow down, the inevitable reckoning. His mind, always sharp and calculating, had now become fixated obsessively on creating something capable of confronting or even defeating Madinga, knowing deep down that his own survival depended on it. As tensions continued to mount, only Orunmila stood detached from this frantic scramble for power and survival. He had warned his fellow gods repeatedly, had pleaded with them to seek peace, but they had dismissed him and laughed at his caution. Now, with quiet sadness and solemn acceptance, Orunmila simply watched events unfold exactly as he had foreseen. His ancient eyes observed silently, his heart heavy with sorrow for what had been and what inevitably was yet to come. Despite this sorrow, a quiet ember of hope burned within him, hope that this turmoil might eventually lead to true change and lasting peace. During these 2 intense years, the rebels systematically targeted key strongholds and domains controlled by the elder gods, shattering their iron rule one territory at a time. Every victory brought renewed hope to oppressed gods, who swiftly rallied under Madinga's banner. With every liberated region, Madinga and his growing army disrupted the elder gods' control, gradually eroding their power base and draining them of their once endless influence. Soon, half of Alkebulan's celestial resources lay in rebel hands, marking a historic shift in the balance of power that sent shockwaves through every corner of the divine realm. Yet, despite their newfound power and expanding territories, Madinga imposed strict ethical guidelines upon his followers, prohibiting them from exploiting the prayers or worship of mortals. Unlike the elder gods, he recognized that such prayers were not currency or power to hoard, but sacred offerings of trust and hope. He instilled in his army the belief that they fought not merely for their freedom, but to restore dignity to all gods, mortal and celestial alike. Under his leadership, a new philosophy emerged, one of balance, respect and justice, starkly contrasting with the oppressive reign of the elder gods. By the end of the 2nd celestial year, Madinga's forces had grown immensely in both strength and conviction. The elder gods could no longer ignore him or belittle his rebellion. Now they were forced to confront a chilling reality. The young god whom they once deemed insignificant had become their most terrifying adversary. As Madinga prepared to take his vengeance directly to their doorstep, the celestial realm of Alkebulan held its breath, awaiting the storm about to unfold. On the dawn of the 3rd celestial year, Madinga stood atop the hill overlooking the sanctuary of Mbutumba. The crimson skies seemed to pulse with anticipation, as though the universe itself sensed the reckoning about to unfold. Beside him stood Midis and Tshakara, silent and resolute. They knew their roles well. This mission was not merely an act of war, it was an exorcism of deeply buried pain, a settling of scores long overdue. Below them, the sanctuary spread out like a dark jewel, vast and imposing. Madinga's eyes narrowed. the very air around him trembling with a suppressed power that sent ripples through reality itself. Without a word, he motioned Midis and Tshakara forward, and like phantoms, they vanished into the twilight to engage Mbutumba's guards. The guards, trained meticulously by the desperate elder god, never saw the two warriors coming. Midis moved with deadly precision, his twin swords like whispered threats in the wind, cutting through defenses effortlessly. Tshakara's spear danced in arcs of brilliant lightning, slicing cleanly and fiercely through their ranks, each strike a testament to the fury and sorrow that fueled her. Their movements were swift and lethal, like whispers of vengeance delivered by the ghosts of the slain. Within moments, the outer defenses fell, and the path to Mbutumba lay open. Alone, with measured, purposeful strides, Madinga entered the inner sanctuary. His heartbeat matched his steps, steady, heavy, determined. Finally, he stood face to face with the god who had destroyed his family, the elder god whose shadow had darkened his entire existence. Mbutumba stood trembling, yet defiant in the dim chamber, his armor shimmering weakly in the fading light, his eyes wide with a mix of fear, pride, and regret. Madinga, his voice low and taut with barely restrained emotion, spoke first. "Tell me, Mbutumba, tell me why. Why did you destroy the lives of those who had never wronged you? What did you gain?" For a moment, Mbutumba's gaze faltered, his voice barely a whisper. "I gained nothing, boy. Nothing but torment." He swallowed painfully, shoulders slumping as he continued, raw honesty breaking through his usual arrogance. "I was consumed by envy and weakness. Your mother, Ezebila, she radiated a joy, a love I could never understand or possess. And your father, Madinga, he had nothing, yet he had everything. Love, loyalty, dignity. I had power, but I was empty. I thought taking from them would fill that emptiness, but it only made the void deeper, darker." Madinga's clenched fists trembled slightly, his expression unreadable, a mask of stoic fury. His voice was a blade's edge. "And did you not once think about the life you brought into this world through such cruelty? Did you even consider what you created?" Mbutumba's eyes shimmered with tears he was too proud to shed, his voice shaking with deep remorse. "Every single day since then, you were my greatest mistake, and yet my greatest achievement. I wished many times I could undo my sins, to know you, but it's far too late now, isn't it?" Madinga's silence was the only answer he offered. A quiet, devastating realization settled over Mbutumba. His redemption was now impossible, and thus he resolved himself to fate. Summoning the remnants of his pride, he stood tall once more, blades of lightning manifesting around him. "Come then," he said softly, eyes meeting his son's unflinchingly, accepting his fate. "If my end will offer you peace, so be it." With a surge of divine power, the battle commenced. Thunder shook the foundations of the sanctuary as Mbutumba hurled relentless bolts of lightning, desperate to defend what remained of his dignity. But Madinga, whose power was now fully awakened, simply raised his spear, deflecting each devastating strike with effortless grace. His counterattacks were precise, punishing, and relentless, every move a manifestation of justice long denied. Soon, Mbutumba's defenses faltered, his strength fading under the overwhelming force of his son's awakened power. With one final exhausted cry, Mbutumba summoned his remaining energy into a powerful storm that engulfed the room, tearing at the walls and shaking the ground. But when the tempest cleared, Madinga stood unmoved, unharmed, his expression almost sorrowful. "You can't win," Madinga whispered, almost gently. "Your reign ends here." With one decisive thrust, Madinga's spear pierced Mbutumba's heart. In that moment, a great flood of memories and divine essence flowed into him, the experiences, hopes, regrets, and powers of an elder god absorbed into his being. Madinga's aura surged exponentially, his divine power radiating like a cosmic beacon. As Mbutumba crumbled to his knees, life fading rapidly, his final gaze was one of acceptance, relief even. "Perhaps, in death, I may finally find peace," he whispered, closing his eyes forever as his body becomes cosmic dust. Madinga stood silently in the aftermath, his breath steadying as he adjusted to the overwhelming surge of power. Midis and Tshakara entered quietly, acknowledging the profound silence. Without words, they understood that this was not merely victory, but closure. Later, standing alone in the sanctuary, Madinga visited the humble room once occupied by Esebila and Wadinga. His fingertips brushed against dusty relics of lives never fully lived, echoes of laughter and joy that he had never known, faces he would never see. The weight of all that was lost pressed heavily upon him, but the clarity of purpose anchored him. "There is still much to do," he whispered softly, stepping back into the fading daylight. News of Mbutumba's demise spread rapidly across the divine realms. Shock, disbelief, and fear gripped the elder gods and their followers. Yet for Madinga's rebels, the victory brought new hope, a promise that perhaps true justice might finally prevail. But deep within Madinga's heart, he knew this was only the beginning of the end. In the highest celestial chamber, hidden among swirling cosmic energies, the remaining 11 elder gods convened urgently. Each seat around the grand celestial table held a powerful deity whose very presence warped the fabric of reality. Yet today, the atmosphere was thick not with the arrogance of gods, but with an unfamiliar fear, a tangible sense of dread that now touched even these ancient beings. Mbutumba's empty throne served as a stark reminder that none among them was truly invincible. Jimani, the mighty elder god of rage and battle, slammed his powerful fists upon the table, his voice a thunderous roar shaking the chamber. "How much longer will we let this child hunt us like mere animals? Mbutumba is gone. Ruhunga, your creations failed us. You must fix this." Ruhunga shifted uneasily in his chair, his normally calm expression marred by anxiety. "The unnamed ones were a risk from the beginning. I warned you all. Their failure was not my own," he argued weakly, knowing well that blame was unavoidable. Orunmila raised a quiet hand, his voice firm yet deeply saddened. "Blaming each other solves nothing. The boy warned us long ago. I advised negotiation. You all chose arrogance. Now the price must be paid." He met the gazes of each elder god, eyes filled with a painful wisdom. "We must seek peace before more lives are lost." Shugara, the Black Empress of Death, shook her head slowly. Her voice was cold, yet tinged with resignation. "Peace? Do you truly believe peace is possible now, Orunmila? Madinga has tasted our blood, our power. He is not going to stop until all of us kneel or perish." Orunmila met her gaze calmly. "We brought this upon ourselves. If we continue fighting, we risk annihilation. I've seen the threads of fate. His power has grown beyond anything we can imagine. If we persist, he will consume us all." Jimani scoffed, defiant even now. "And what, beg for mercy? Never!" Yet a grim silence fell upon the chamber as each elder god considered their dwindling options. It was clear that arrogance had led them to this precipice, and now humility was their only hope, a bitter pill none wished to swallow.